All right, welcome in to the latest. I'm going to call this Five on the Floor. This is kind of our after floor, more floor post game show. I'm Ethan Skolnick here with Royal Shepherd. We may be joined by a couple of others. Brought to you by BiscayneBayBrewing.com. You can find where you can get this and the rest of the Biscayne Bay Brew beers on their website. You can find them at a lot of local Publixes, other convenience stores, and also at local restaurants. It's official beer of the Five Reasons Sports Network, as well as Inter Miami and the Miami Marlins. All right, the Miami Heat lose their third game of the season, now 2-3 in 5 games. They lose to the Dallas Mavericks 93-83. They missed their first 14 threes. Jimmy Butler was 0 of 6 from the field, had 2 points overall in his return after missing 2 games due to an ankle injury. Duncan Robinson was pretty much useless. Andre Iguodala gave them nothing offensively. Goran Dragic took forever to get going. And really, Royal, I mean, other than Bam, I guess a few decent minutes from Precious and then Avery Bradley in kind of a manic fourth quarter, they really didn't accomplish much. They had 4 assists in the first half. They finished with 20, so it picked up a little bit. But flat, the shooting was not good. Jimmy was awful. People are calling for Max Strus, Gabe Vincent, and KZ Okpala in the 5th game of the season, which is always a bad sign. I'm going to ask you this, and we're going to deep dive on this in the pod and Five on the Floor this weekend. But, to you, which of these issues is real and which of these are just, honestly, rust and variability at this point?
Okay, so I think Jimmy is rust. He hasn't had the opportunity to play very much, and he may still be working himself into shape. I think we have real defensive issues in terms of being able to guard the 3-point line. I'm not a fan of anybody on the perimeter defensive front, and except for Avery Bradley at this point. I think he's the only person who's really been able to hold his own on the wing, and I don't know, man. The shooting, I'm not as worried about. I think that's going to come around eventually when everybody works themselves back into shape. But a lot of this stuff is very concerning. The turnovers is a real issue for me. They didn't have as many. I don't think they reached 20 tonight. But it's a lot of things going wrong with this team, and I think a lot of us are falling into the trap of saying, well, this is what they did in the bubble.
Right.
But this is not the same team, and I think it's around time that we start admitting that to ourselves.
Well, it's not the same team, but it is the same team. I mean, look, you've added 3 pieces, okay? One of them, they've gotten nothing from Harkless pretty much other than a 3-minute stretch in any game. That one so far does not look good. Avery Bradley has looked good for the most part. He brought them back in the fourth quarter today. Precious has looked good. The rest of the guys are the same. We can talk about DJJ and Jay Crowder. My whole thing about Heat fans, and this is coming in on the comments too, if we're talking about the loss of Jay Crowder or the loss of DJJ, although there's not as much of that, or why isn't Max Strus playing in a game that he's not even active? People are saying, they're putting comments here, why not put Strus in? You can't. He's not active. Or Gabe Vincent, or where is Okpala? I think we're missing the point. The point is this Heat team went to the finals last year on the strength of Butler, Bam, and Dragic, okay? And then they lost in the finals because they didn't have two of those three guys. And so if you're going to get this Jimmy Butler, I'm arguing with Sedano on text right now. He's like, they got to trade for Harden. I'm like, okay, we can discuss that, but none of it matters if you get this Jimmy Butler. The rest of this team feeds off Jimmy, and he was the worst player on the floor tonight offensively.
Yeah, but I think you're talking about the roster, and when I say the team, I mean this team doesn't have the same motivation as that bubble team. It's kind of like you were talking about before. Is they have to learn how to deal with the fact that they're now being hunted, as opposed to being the underdogs, and they're not adjusting to that very well. And I think that's a problem that we may need to consider watching a little more closely, as opposed to just blowing it off as rust.
No, I think that's fair, Jonathan. Look, this is the disease of me thing that Riley talks about all the time. And the 2006 championship team came back in 2007 completely flat. This kind of stuff happens. But I do think these circumstances are weird enough that I don't know if it's just complacency. Again, they've had Jimmy. I'm not making excuses. Jimmy didn't play in either preseason game, okay? He's played now. I wouldn't even count tonight as playing, okay? But he's played. He's missed 2 of the regular season games. He just doesn't look like himself. There are other issues with this team we need to address, okay? We need to talk about. You talk about perimeter defense from the guards. That's a big problem, okay? You talk about sometimes Bam not wanting to take over games. That's a problem. You talk about Duncan not providing anything if he's not making his shots. These are legitimate problems. I'm with you on all this stuff. But again, this team, Jonathan, this team feeds off Jimmy Butler. Like, that's the engine. That's the guy who won them 2 finals games. And let's just be honest, he looked like shit tonight. Like, he looked terrible. I mean, this is not his words. Like, he wasn't like just – he was bad. Like, bad, like bottom 10 player in the league bad. And we know Jimmy Butler is a top 15 player in the league. So that's why until he's right and they can feed off of him, I'm not going to start calling for Max Strus to save the season.
Yeah, I mean, tonight kind of looked like Jimmy kind of looked like an off night when he had Dion, where he kind of didn't know what he was doing. He was making these errant passes kind of just out of bad post positions because he wasn't getting in front of the players and getting the positioning that he wanted to. So, yeah, Jimmy really has to step it up. I feel like the looks he had tonight just weren't good at all. And when he would get into the paint, he would get stuck on that pivot foot and just look for an outlet. And 0 for 6, 1 or 2 points tonight. I mean, that can't be the Jimmy we have. I mean, at the end of the day, he is our max player. He is our leader. So he's somebody that needs to be leading this team as far as making sure the offense gets started. And if we're in a hole like we were at the beginning of the game, Jimmy needs to start and take over, kind of like how we want Bam to take over right now. Because Jimmy, like you said, is the head of the team. And we could talk about how this team isn't the same because, I mean, Nunn and Myers are non-existent now compared to last year when those guys were starting. We started off great,
but they were not. But Jonathan, they were non-existent in the bubble too. So I think that and I think one of the comments that came. Well, look, Jimmy's played 2.5 out of the 5 games. Okay, he missed the second half of the other game. But the other comment that just comes in is about it's difficult for these guys when they're not getting consistent minutes. And to me, this is the flip side of having so-called depth. Right? Is that Spoelstra is throwing things at the wall right now. Like, it worked in the second game against Milwaukee. It worked. I was there. He played Gabe Vincent. He was played 11 guys in the first quarter and a half. He was playing 3-guard combinations. But nobody on this team knows when they're going to play now. Like, there's no consistency. There's no rhythm to the rotation because you're not getting out of Harkless what you thought you might get. Okay, so they might have just misread that one. Okay, and it happens. But they might have misread it. And then, Iguodala's in the starting lineup tonight. This is not something we expected before the season. So it's all over the damn place. And this one comes in overreacting, and Heat fans go hand in hand. I think there is a balance between – I don't think we should say that none of this means anything. It does. They've looked bad for most of the first 5 games. Like, every time you look up, they're down 10. I mean, even in the second Milwaukee game, they're down 10. The New Orleans game, they struggled at times. So I think there's something to it, but I also think – it's a little bit of an overreaction to say everybody on the team sucks now, and you got to gut a team that went to the finals. I think there can be a little – can there be somewhere in between?
There is somewhere in between. I think the problem is with something like the Mo Harkless thing, you brought him in for a specific role that it doesn't look like he's going to be able to fill, and you have nobody else who can man that position for what he was supposed to do. That's where the overreaction comes from. It's problems that don't look like they have a fix on the roster. And that's where the calls for Harden come from. The turnover issue. Part of it is going to be Tyler's growth. Part of it is going to be playing without Jimmy. But even with Jimmy playing tonight, we still turning the ball over. And that's problematic. I understand that Jimmy's going to take some time to come around. I fully expect Jimmy to be right, like come mid-season. So I'm not worried about his play in particular. I am worried about everybody around him, though. I expect Bam to find some level of comfort. I expect Tyler to find some level of comfort. But Duncan, to me, is starting to become a bit worrisome. The fact that we don't know what to do with Myers Leonard is problematic. We don't know if he should start or if we should bench him entirely. And like I mentioned, the Mo Harkless thing, that to me is the problem that's screaming the loudest.
Well, that one is. I mean, the one guy who I think is giving him a little something in most of the games he's played is Kelly, which I think is something that we didn't necessarily expect. We got Matt Perdomo joining us now also. I mean, I think Kelly has been reasonably consistent when he's played, but honestly, I also think I'm not the optimist guy, but I do think we have to look at some things. Let's try to put a positive spin on something. Okay. What I would say is if one of the issues you have is that there are too many guys for Spoelstra to play. The fact that some guys have played themselves out of the rotation early may not be the worst thing in the world. I mean, he gave Myers a chance as a starter, kind of worked for one game. He pulled him after 2 minutes the next game. Kendrick Nunn hasn't done anything to deserve minutes, okay? And I'm sorry, I'm rooting for Kendrick, but, I mean, he doesn't even look like the same guy. It's like they've coached any aggressiveness out of him at this point. Like, he looks lost. He almost looks like a player who needs a change of scenery, which is just weird because of what he did last year. Harkless is unplayable at this point. So you've basically taken 3 guys unplayable, okay? All right, so who's playable? Well, you've added Precious and you've added Bradley. Those guys are playable. Iguodala is playable in certain circumstances, right?
Yeah.
So I do think that some of this is going to work itself out, where Eric is going to have to. He's only going to have so many options to actually play. And this comes in from Porter. Spo seems like he's panicking a lot. Spo seems like he's coaching in the preseason. It's just and I don't mean that as pejorative. It's just, Matt, it's all over the place so far. But one of the things we've been talking about is, I mean, to me, it's just very hard to judge this thing if you've got bottom half of the league Jimmy Butler instead of top 15 player in the league Jimmy Butler. I don't know how you can expect this team to be consistently competitive. You can win a game like you did against Milwaukee the other day, but be consistently competitive unless he's setting the tone.
I want to let Simba jump in since he hasn't got a chance to say anything.
I'm letting Matt jump in. I went to Matt, but he's
I want you to get. I don't know. To me, it seems like there's a lot more than just Jimmy. You know, Duncan. I don't think he's found his game this year yet. I mean, I know he's 50% or something like that for the year right now, but I don't know. It seems like every time we need him to make a shot, he's not there. And Duncan used to kind of be that guy, you know, that kind of start that offense going. To be the deep threat, and I don't know, he hasn't been there.
Hold on, I'm getting a lot of feedback. I don't know if this was Alex.
Yeah, I think what you're talking about has a lot to do with defense is spending a lot more time focusing on Duncan Robinson. A lot of teams are like targeting him to take him out of the offense, and that has been it's been really effective up until this point in the season. Alex, I see you just jumped in here. I don't know if Ethan can hear you yet.
I can hear him. I was hearing some feedback.
Oh, okay. So, we were just talking about some of the things that we saw wrong with the game. What was the biggest thing that stood out to you?
The biggest thing? I mean, they couldn't make a shot. Like as much as I could talk about defense being important, like their defense wasn't on par tonight either. But my God, that offense was just some of the worst offense I've ever seen the Heat play. And that's saying something because, like, this team was elite at offense last year. They were in the top 10 all year. So it was really weird to – just kind of miss everything. They were missing layups, and obviously Jimmy just isn't right. Like, I know Jimmy had some rough games last year, but 0-6. So you're telling me the attempts are down, and he didn't make one of them, and he missed a couple bunnies there too. So I think Jimmy's confidence is off. They never got into a rhythm once until like that fourth quarter when Avery Bradley turned into Duncan Robinson. So yeah, they need to make some shots.
Well, it's not just Jimmy in the 0 for 6. It's just he just doesn't look comfortable with the ball in his hands. Like, and I noticed that even in the season opener. Like, he's not, he had the 7 steals, so it kind of got overlooked. And then we always talk about he works his way into games, but this isn't working his way into games. Like, he doesn't look comfortable. I don't think the ankle was a problem tonight, but he just doesn't look right. And I also think what may start to happen here a little bit is that we've talked all offseason, and it hasn't been a very long offseason. But we've talked all offseason about this transition to Bam as more of an offensive threat. And I think that that's going to take some time also. They're expecting Hero to handle the ball more, play make more. They want Bam to become more of an offensive threat.
And he went 8 of 12.
He went 8 of 12. Oh, I thought Hero was good tonight. And
no, Bam.
I was talking about Bam.
Oh, Bam. I thought they were both pretty good tonight. But yeah, but the other thing, and he's been money with a mid-range. But the other thing is, it's like you're asking all these guys to expand their games, and then Jimmy to kind of do what he did last year. And I think it's difficult for Jimmy to kind of slide his way back in here when he's already rusty, didn't have a lot of time off, didn't play in the preseason. Then he hurts his ankle, and then he comes in and he's playing with 2 guys who are expected to do more this year. And it looked to me like Jimmy didn't know when he was supposed to go and not go today. And that was not really the issue last season. So I do think it's going to take some time. Like, they need a boot camp, like training camp right now, and they can't get it, okay? And I think that's part of it. But, Alex, I want to get to you too, and we'll come back to Matt and some of these other guys after. Like, we're going to talk more about this on the pod on Sunday. But to me, like, we're talking about guys that they're missing from last year, again, other than a healthy and, not rusty Jimmy. But like you mentioned, they were a top 8 offense in the league last year. So this idea, though, everybody's, texting, or tweeting, you got to get Harden, you can't score, you got to get Harden. Well, they scored last year. They got to the finals with the same damn team. I mean, I watched Jay Crowder for the Suns yesterday. Like, Jay's not creating anything. I don't like it's in there somewhere, isn't it?
Somebody needs to look up what Jay Crowder is shooting with for the Suns because I would be really interested because you would swear that he was the difference tonight. That
Oh, I know. He's
Just
been
off of-
better, Alex. He's been better his last 2 games, but he was one of the worst players in the league in terms of points per shot coming into that. Here it is. Okay, he's averaging 12. Thank you, Manny. Averaging 12
For the
points,
shooting
5
numbers.
rebounds. Okay.
It says 44.7 field goal percentage this
What
year.
about from three?
That's some grade A producing there,
Yeah,
man.
there we go.
Look at that.
3-point percentage. Yeah, he's at 33.6. That's.
Oh, okay.
Oh wait, no. I'm sorry. I'm looking at the wrong one. No, he's at 38 so far this year. So
All right.
boom, he just.
So boom. Well,
2021 producing, Manny. That's what I'm talking about. New year producing.
Well, look through the first half tonight. Solomon Hill had 1 3 for Atlanta, and the entire Heat team had none. So let's bring Solomon Hill back because obviously he's the problem. We're going to hear that one next. That's the problem with the offense.
we need better shooting. Bring back Derrick Jones Jr.
Right.
Yes.
That'll do it. Career 28.
I think you guys are making light of this situation, but I mean, in reality, like
Look, man, we gotta make tonight fun somehow.
It is legitimately a problem that without Jimmy Butler, our entire team goes to shit. Like we can't create any type of like consistent offensive flow or defensive flow without him, and nobody seems to want to acknowledge it. Like I don't think Jimmy is the end all be all in terms of solving this team. I think that we could use a player like Harden because he takes the load off of Jimmy. And in a game like tonight, you got to admit he would have been useful when there is no offense to be found.
No, there's no question he would have been useful. But Roy, let me throw this back at you then.
What's up?
So we've seen what Precious looks like, right, through the first 5 games. Would we agree that it appears that the Heat hit on another player?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
You're going to have to include him.
Right.
I mean, this idea that this trade is Tyler Hero for James Harden, which is this idiocy that is spreading on Twitter.
It's a fallacy. That's not it.
It's not it. Okay?
But I think Twitter knows better. I think Twitter knows all the pieces that are involved.
They know justice better.
No, they don't.
They don't know better about this. Okay? Alex, they think it's Hero for him.
They think it's Hero for Harden.
I get that. I think that's more of a national thing. I think people look at an NBA Central thing about, Tyler Hero is not in the trade for James Harden, and then people start throwing off hot takes on Twitter. I think Heat fans know that it wouldn't be just Tyler Hero for James Harden. Like we all know that it's been talked about already. It's 5, 6, 7 pieces. It's draft picks. It's all of that. To me,
I like the fact that Manny brought up DJJ because while we're all joking about him, is there any doubt that DJJ would be the starting 4 on this team right now?
Is there doubt? Yeah, I would definitely have doubt.
Roy, if Jay was here or not here?
If Jay's not here and DJJ, with the team is currently constructed, would DJJ be our starting 4?
I mean, he can't be worse than Mo, but again, exactly. I don't think he should be. He should be the starting 4.
I think he would be the most qualified person on the roster to start next to Bam right now.
Well, he might. Well, yeah, they have a comfort level together, so that probably is what would happen. But let me ask this too, because our old friend Al threw this out there today. What is Mo Harkless good at?
He's supposed to be good at defense, but he hasn't even showed that yet. Yeah. Like I knew he wasn't going to be a good shooter, but you just needed him to make 1 open 3 a game and to play solid defense. He hasn't even given you that like baseline, and that's a problem because it's like, again, everybody's trying to crown KZ. I get it, we're all ahead, but like KZ can shoot better and handle better than Harkless, and I'm pretty sure about that. Even though we haven't seen much from him, like I just think the bar is that low.
Cheerleading lessons from Myers. That's what he needs to do. Like because his ass gonna be on the bench for a very long time.
Well, you know what the problem with that little stat line that Manny's throwing out there, other than the fact my eyes are not good enough to see it. There's a lot. There's a lot of teams there. There's a lot of teams there, right? And there's a reason when a guy has that many teams, he has that many teams, and that's the thing. I liked it as a stopgap acquisition, but if they're not comfortable with KZ, I don't think we're far away from Precious being the starting 4. I think at this point, I wouldn't mind seeing Spoelstra experiment with Bam and Precious together a little bit, Jonathan, to kind of see what that looks like. Because it feels to me like if everybody's on the roster right now, the one guy who's giving him good minutes at the 4, or I mean, he's playing with Kelly a lot, so he's playing some at the 5, some is Precious. Like that's the one guy where you know what you're getting every night.
Yeah, well, I think tonight, unless I'm wrong, I think Precious and Bam actually had a couple minutes together where they were playing, and it looked good because now Bam is expanding his game where he's developing that jumper, and Precious is somebody who's so good at the pick and roll, he'll dive to the rim. He has like wide receiver hands. Like no matter what you throw at this dude, he's gonna catch it. So he's really good at just being all over the court and making his presence felt. no matter what his role is. You know what I mean? So I think we could be seeing that in the future, and it would be really good defensively. And on top of that, Precious is a decent ball handler too, where you'll see up a couple of times where if he's in a bad position and he can't find an outlet pass, he'll just dribble it up himself. So I think it would be really good to test out the Bam and Precious lineup just because it would be so versatile offensively and it would work its way out down the line.
Why do we think that Spoelstra is still forcing the Kendrick Nunn thing, Matt? Is Matt still here? Do we lose Matt?
Yeah, I'm here.
I mean, what? I mean, because it's.
I don't know. I'm guessing they see something in practice. Like it's got to be like he's like lighting up in practice or something. And they're like, all right, it's at some point it's going to translate to the game. I don't know, but I always wonder the same thing. I thought it might be like to bring up his trade value, but I think that's going against them now because it's going down.
He's becoming a negative asset. Like
yeah.
I mean, he went from being a positive asset to a negative asset. And I mean, to the point that we were wondering in pregame, maybe he should be inactive instead of Vincent. I mean, because Vincent's the one who played and gave them something the other. I'm trying to think, guys, historically, and I've covered this damn team for 26 years. I'm trying to think historically of a player who was with the Heat who just lost it. I'm not talking about somebody who never gave him anything like we're seeing with Harkless. They brought in some veterans like that who just gave – I mean, I remember they brought in Otis Thorpe. Remember, he was a really good player. They brought in Otis Thorpe to be their best bench big. He was out of West Palm. He played for the Rockets. He never gave them anything that whole year. Like, they've made mistakes in the veteran market at times, but I can't remember a guy who just went total – I mean, has there ever been one? Like, Norris Cole didn't go from, like, productive to awful. He just leveled off, right? Like, has there been somebody like this?
Hassan,
I can remember
Hassan, but Hassan didn't forget how to play. He just didn't
play
anymore.
He just didn't play worth the shit.
He didn't care how he
did. Right, and he didn't expand on anything that he was.
Somebody said before. Henry Walker. He was never good.
No, he was never good. No, I'm trying to. Has there ever been a guy who was as good enough to be second in the year? Wayne Ellington. No, I don't agree with that.
No,
Wayne was pretty consistent.
Man with a golden arm.
Yeah, Wayne was good till he left.
Yeah,
but somebody who was good and then became unplayable.
Right.
That's a tough one. I've never seen. I don't think
Ryan McGruder was the same guy pretty much that he was from the beginning. He just got overplayed, but he wasn't. His skill set didn't. I've never seen a guy. I mean, has there been a guy who's just lost his? Look, Gerald Green came in here. Remember, lit it up during a preseason, and then went like 81 minutes during the regular season without scoring. But like.
Somebody said Bibby, but the problem with Bibby was good everywhere else. He wasn't good here.
He made a couple threes his first game.
God, I come back and we're talking about Mike Bibby. What's going on, man? I was off for 2 minutes.
Alex, I want to throw this one at you because we're having trouble coming up with one. Can you think now? McRoberts doesn't count. He never got on the court.
No.
What is this conversation? I'm interested.
No. Here's the conversation. Is there a guy? James Ennis comes in here. Is there a guy who played at a pretty high level for the Heat that suddenly just lost his confidence and forgot how to play, like what has happened with Kendrick Nunn? Like I can't
Justice up and down.
No, he didn't forget how to play. He just couldn't stay on the court. Waiters.
Oh, if you're talking about just a confidence thing, that's why Justice came into mind, because I know that was like a well-documented thing that sometimes he just didn't have the confidence in the shot in those first couple of years. But
Chris Quinn wasn't good.
You're talking about like a Markelle Fultz thing, where like early on he just had no confidence.
There are some guys who kind of come on they're gangbusters, right? And then all of a sudden they just fall off. And I don't remember a lot of. I mentioned Gerald Green, but Gerald Green was a preseason thing, though. That's the thing.
Same Magruder.
Magruder was the same guy. He didn't change.
No, I'm saying that Magruder had that one preseason where he went crazy and then just went back into like the an 11th guy for the rest of the season.
Well, I mean, I guess JJ would be one, but
Tyler Johnson.
I know one, but
Tyler. I don't think Tyler got worse. His numbers were the same. It was just he got paid more. That was.
I know
Tyler Johnson.
Yeah,
I know one who wasn't with the Heat, Jeremy Lin.
We ended that shit.
He lit it up for a while.
We ended that shit.
Mario Thomas and Norris Cole killed him.
But I think JJ is the closest one that I've heard so far. James Johnson, where he came in that first year, he kind of like lit it up for us, and then it got to the point where it was like we don't even know if we can play him. Like, so he got like that towards the latter end. But even still, he still had moments towards the end where he would, like his first game back last year after the suspension. Like he came back and he lit it up that game, so he would still have moments. Kendrick Nunn's not.
I would never forget that Clippers game.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So Kendrick Nunn's not even having those type of moments, and I think that's the problem.
He's had one dunk like in 9 months. Like,
Can I say one thing?
That's Wayne Simeon never showed out. I'm sorry, I can't give you that one.
Wayne Simeon, that's a good name though.
It's a great name. He's actually done. He's a man of God.
Did he ever step on the floor?
I mean, like a couple.
I
times.
never saw it.
That's when Riley would only draft guys who played 5 years in college. He went through this like thing for like 5 years.
Wang ended with Shabbat.
Wang Zhizhu is a famous. He's like a popular big man, like backup for the Heat. Why does nobody ever talk about Vladimir Stepanov? He's one of my favorite, terrible.
Yeah.
That was my guy.
Do you remember though, Vladdy? There was we're talking about everything but the game tonight because we really don't want to. Remember Stepanov? Like there was a big debate about whether to pay him. This was actually a big off-season debate whether they were going to pay Vladimir.
I'm kind of showing my Heat age right there. Like people.
I don't know who you're talking about.
You're the second oldest one on here. Darrell Wright comes on.
Yeah, I mean he was good. I think the problem was we never played him early, and then by the time he got good, he was already gone.
Yeah.
Ethan, can I say something?
Yes, go ahead.
About we mentioned Dion before, and I want to shout out. I want to at Marco Romo on Twitter. Yeah. I'm pretty sure it was him who tweeted this. He tweeted something, and I haven't been able to get it out of my head. He said that last year, he tweeted that Nunn was Dion without the passing. And it just clicked in my head. I'm like, oh, fuck.
But now
it makes so much sense.
But now, Alex, he's old. Thank you for the Vladimir Stepanov picture. I appreciate that. Just so Alex can recognize it. No, but
that guy never played for the Heat. You can't fool me.
No, he did.
Yes, he did. He got a picture of the Heat right there.
That's a Blazers jersey.
No, he was pretty good for a couple of months.
That's a photo.
My favorite backup center behind Zoe of all time.
I'm a Doliak guy, but Alex, he's overpassing now. I mean, I was fixated on him during his 8 minutes, and he's not even. I mean, he looks totally lost. It's like he needs to go to the G League, and there is no G League right now. That's the problem. I'm not saying that's mean. I'm saying
there was a couple times he got the ball and he didn't even look to shoot.
No.
He did the Bam thing.
That's the thing. In the starting lineup all year last season, that wasn't the problem ever. Like he would always look for his shot. And
he shot too damn much last year.
Yeah,
I just really feel vindicated, man. I do, because I said all last year he's not a good player unless you start him with those guys, and I just keep feeling vindicated every time I watch him play coming off the bench there. Like he just looks lost. Like he doesn't know what his role is. I don't understand. I think Spo is definitely telling him to shoot. We know Spo tells his guys to shoot, and that's what Kendrick Nunn's value is his scoring, his supposed scoring. He's gonna give you the threes. He might run around a screen and give you a little pull up in the mid range. He'll give there has been none of that. You would think he would be better off the bench scoring wise, and the confidence was not there.
All right, they want us to talk about this too.
Actually, I got a question.
And Dion was a way better defender than Nunn, by the way.
Yeah.
Actually, I got a question. I know that we're looking for that 4 for the starting lineup. What would happen if we tried to size down instead and went with a lineup kind of like Bradley, Hero, Duncan, Jimmy?
That's what we suggested.
But how do you do that for the whole season? That's the tough part.
Yeah,
that's what we suggested in the pregame, and then Brady nailed the actual real starting lineup. But I mean, to me, that's their quote unquote death lineup. Although the only guy who looked like he could actually make you feel any pain today was Avery Bradley. But yeah, I mean that's their supposed death lineup. But let's address this. John Keller just sent this in, and we should address it. And this is one of the questions that comes up. Why won't we address the fact that your max player Bam? Here we go. Why do you guys refuse to talk about the fact that our max player Bam refuses to try to take over a game or be aggressive on offense?
Because that's the only way that we can value max players is if you see them take over a game and drop 30. Because that's the only way to value somebody as a max player. This idea, I'm sorry, I'm going off on a rant right now. This is not about John or anybody else. It's been boiling in me since that game that he had versus the Bucks where he played awful, no doubt about it. But since when is Bam supposed to be that guy? I get that they paid him so much, but he stepped it up, and you saw the next game. He did exactly what everybody wanted. The shot looks better. He's a max player without that. If he went into the season and didn't start taking more jump shots, I would still say he's worth that. I think everything he does to the team, he is undoubtedly a max player. This idea where he has to prove it or that he has to, get paid and all of a sudden turn into a 25 points per game scorer, I'm not buying that at all. I see the growth with Bam. Unless he starts really taking less than 10 shots a game every game, that's when I think it becomes a problem. I just think Bam, he had another good scoring game tonight. I don't really see how that's the problem, man. I think people are being too hard on Bam, and that's why we got to privatize. what am I trying to say? Make
Privatize
private.
Social Security now.
Yeah, no, not privatized. That's not good. You want to make private these players' contracts. That's what because it's just like this contract stuff. It's not good analysis. All right, like Bam brings the value whether he's making mid-range jumpers or not, or scoring 30 or not.
But there are levels of max players, right? Like Dwayne Wade was a max player, LeBron James was a max player, and Joe Johnson was a max player. Okay, so
max player.
Right, right. So I'm just saying, like, there are degrees. I understand why Heat fans get frustrated sometimes because they want somebody to do something, and they're like, "Oh, Jimmy's not out there, so Bam should do it." But I have seen growth in that regard. He's taking the jumper this year. To me, that's a start. He's making them at a pretty high clip. So that's obviously positive.
And he's upped his shot load every single year.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm saying. Like he's in his 4th year, and we've seen big time growth from him every year. But like we want him to be like his 8th year version of himself right away. Like, damn, give him some space, man. He's already one of the 20 best players in the league. He just started his 4th season.
They want him to be AD right now, I think, and that's the thing. And the reality is, AD is not even AD all the time, but they want him to be AD right now. All right, let's get. We've got more and more comments coming in, but I gotta go. If you guys want to continue, you can. But I will just say this, and Alex and myself and Greg will dive into this a little bit more on Sunday night. But Royal, it sounds to me like you think more of these problems are a little bit structural going forward. I mean, on a scale of 1 to 10, they're 2 and 3. They've really looked good in maybe 7 quarters so far this season. Maybe 2 against Milwaukee in that last game, maybe 3 against New Orleans, and that's been pretty much it. Level of concern. Let's go from 1 to 10, Jonathan. Level of concern, 10 being the highest through the first 5.
For the first 5, I would give it a 6, just because there's some glaring holes. Number 1, the turnovers. Number 2, the lack of consistency in the rotation, and just lack consistency overall. Like we talked about, Hero playing well. He started off really well. I think he started 4 for 5, and then he went 1 for 6 for the rest of the game. So I think overall we need to just get more consistent, get everything a little bit tied up, a little bit more neat. And I think, like you said, it's a little bit like our preseason, just because we had such a short off season. So it's going to take time for this team to mesh together and kind of find its flow. And I think, like Alex said, Bam is a max player because he's a top 5 player defensively in this NBA on top of everything he does offensively. So this team will come together. I feel like we have a good group of guys. The problem is we kind of have a little bit of over depth where we don't know who to play and who not to play. So once Spo is able to figure that out, I think it's going to be something that will figure itself out down the season.
Well, I think Nunn, Leonard, and Harkless he's sort of figuring out already. But yeah, I mean, I think those 3. Royal, where are you at 1 to 10?
I'm probably 7, but I'm trending 6. I'm because of what Jonathan mentioned, where I figured that Spo will inevitably figure out what the lineups will be, but he hasn't figured it out yet through 5 games. So if we're just talking about these first 5, I'm very worried about the rotation. I have no idea who's going to man the 4. I have no idea how he's going to work out the whole adding perimeter defense without losing offense thing, because we have a lot of one-way players. People who are good at offense but not defense. People who are good at defense but not offense. And that's a problem of trying to find that proper balance. And that could take longer than we want. But right now, I'm a little worried. But, I mean, Spo will have me trending down. And I guess the more games that we watch, the more concrete I'll have an answer for you.
Well, Alex, that was your thing all last year. It's the one-way players except for Bam and Jimmy. And then sometimes Bam and
the
Jimmy
turnovers.
And the turnovers, and sometimes
it's
Bam
obviously
and Jimmy
been worse
don't
this year,
play.
by the way. I'm not trying to downplay it.
Sometimes Bam and Jimmy don't want to play offense, so that create, or at least don't want to look to score, which makes them one-way players. Also, I will say this though, for the people who keep coming in with Harden, and Matt, I'll get to your number here in a second. Harden's not playing the 4, even at his size. So
he should.
That problem has not been addressed unless you're going to play Precious there. So I mean,
but you see them points per game, though, Ethan. Jesus.
Hold on, that's how Harden doesn't have to do all the physical stuff with the Heat and losing the weight because he just tells, I'll be the 4.
I'll be the 4. He needs to play the 4. Matt, where do you have it 1 to 10?
So I think during the game, I thought I was going to be at an 8. If we would have ended up losing by that 20, I think it would have been 8. But I think realistically, I think 7. I think as we go throughout the year, we might hit that 6. I think I'm just more worried, for that we have 3 players that we can't use, and 2 of them were like, pivotal for us last year, and then one of them, we don't know what we're gonna get, from Harkless or whatever. So I think I'm just more worried to see like who are we gonna get like, any consistency from every game.
Adam Bore, because I'm not going to pronounce his name correctly now, since he's mocking me about not saying Achua. It's Achua, yes, but I just say Precious all the time. But thank you. There you go. Look at that. Alex, what are you at? 1 to 10.
Sorry, Bam just came on, but I'll say it quickly. I'm at a 5 right now. I think if this keeps going for another couple of weeks, then I'll start being worried. But I'm just not there yet.
Yeah, and Andy will figure something out. I'm at a 5 also because I do think that Eric is in a. He's in an experimentation stage, and Jimmy is like not even close to Jimmy. If they look like this with Jimmy looking good, then I'll have serious concerns. But I mean, there are guys on this team like Duncan Robinson plays off of Jimmy. He also plays off of Bam, but he plays off of Jimmy. Tyler gains confidence from Jimmy. If Jimmy's going to look like he looked tonight, okay. I mean, they're not going anywhere anyway, okay? So, to me, these conversations about Max Strus and Gabe Vincent, I mean, at least the Harden conversation is reasonable. But, like, this whole thing...
They would have made all the difference.
Yeah, right, exactly. These things that Heat fans have about pulling any loose body they've got off the bench, okay, is better than the guy they have. Now, in Harkless' case, it may actually be true, okay? Which is one of the few times I've agreed, because I have not seen them bring in a guy who looked so lost and yet continue to throw him out there the way that they have early. It almost feels to me like that's coming from somewhere else. Like, I don't know. Was this a Riley like find or addition? I mean, because they went after him twice. Like, they got him last year. They brought, and it's like, we're going to make this thing work. But he hasn't shown me. And apparently he's I don't know him. He's a really nice guy. He does a lot of charity work in New York. Like, this is nothing personal, but I haven't seen anything from him that leads me to believe he should be on the court right now.
Listen, I think because he does charity work, he should be in the organization. I don't give a damn about his charity when it comes to that court. Like, if you're not gonna do what they pay you to do, then please, by all means, take your seat next to Myers and enjoy the game like the rest of us. Like, I think I'm done. Like, I'm out on Mo Harkless, bro. Like, I'm out.
5 games, you're done with him?
I'm out, bro. I am out.
So in a 1 to 10, you're a 10 with him already. You're worried.
Yeah. Like, I'm out on Mo Harkless, bro. Like,
listen. I am just a producer on here, but I have something to say, and I'm going to say it just like this. There's still 65 or 60 whatever games left. Why are we like crying about this type of
Harkless?
Like this? No. But in this type of game that we saw tonight, it's in the Heat's culture for this to happen, though. It's happened already. So why the hell are we all complaining about
Well,
this?
I think we reasonably thought, looking at their first 5-game schedule, knowing that they were coming back after a 2-month break, that they'd probably be 3-2 at this point. I mean, it's not. I don't think anybody thought they'd be 5-0. Okay,
No.
I think it's the fact that, with the exception, like I said, a couple of really good quarters against New Orleans and kind of a frenzy defensively in that second game against Milwaukee, they just haven't looked good most of the time. That's it. But again, like you're saying, Manny, Jimmy has played 2.5 games, and he hasn't played them well. Okay,
No.
And so
there's still 55 other performances that this team have a chance to try to get it together. Now, if after 20-25 games this is a result, then hey, that's it.
Right.
That's it.
Well, then Pat will make a trade for sake. This comes in from Brady. He's on the call right now. Bam Adebayo. We'll figure it out. We will get better. We're going to be all right. So we'll see what happens. All right. Thanks, Manny, for producing. Thanks to Jonathan. Thanks to our guy Matthew. Thanks to Alex, who's been on some of these calls. Thanks to Royal for going all out on Mo Harkless after 5 games.
No more Mo.
No more Mo.
Shout out Tiffany Meeks.
We'll be back on the pod on Sunday night with Greg, and then the streams again on Monday night after the home game against OKC. If they lose that one to that team, like, nobody on that team knows who's on that team except for SGA. Like, that's a whole different.
Have you seen the rookie 7-footer that they drafted? The foreign dude, Alex Edge? Yeah. Oh my God! Can't wait to get a up close and personal look at him.
They're gonna lose to Lou Dort on Monday. If they lose to Lou Dort on Monday, then it's the whole.
Man, you see what he did to Harden. I mean,
I
know Jimmy is looking scared going into that game after going 0-6.
I mean, what Jimmy got?
I'm just kidding. I know Jimmy's never scared
the whole time anyway.
Trade all your parts for Lou Dort instead of for Harden. And by the way, the Lakers are losing to San Antonio.
Dort can play the 4 for sure. I don't care if he's 6'5".
Oh, by the way, I took Washington tonight in a parlay. They're up 35 on Minnesota, so I guess Beal's not getting traded now. Everybody, have a good night.